Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry. This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Megan Joseph, the visionary founder of Impact Launch. Megan's career is a compelling story of moving from hands-on community work to empowering leaders focusing on complex social issues within the nonprofit and government sectors. As a leader who champions an ecosystem approach to creating change, Megan is currently pioneering growth and expansion programs, helping community organizations, NGOs, and local government leaders adopt a CEO mindset for greater impact and scale. Her insights into strategic resource diversification and the ethical integration of AI in the nonprofit sphere can be highly valuable for any entrepreneur seeking to maximize their purpose and profitability.
Thank you so much, David, for having me.
Pleasure to have you on the show today.
Thanks.
Megan, your journey is rooted in hands-on work and complex social issues, transitioning from community-based organizations and local government to founding Impact Launch. Could you share what foundational experiences or principles from your early work most profoundly shaped your decision to pivot from direct service to coaching leaders?
Yeah. There are a couple of pivotal moments, or sort of what I would call awakenings, revelation moments, where I recognized that good ideas and good intentions don't lead to impact and results. And our NGOs, our CBOs, community-based organizations, local governments play such a critical role in the ecosystem of our communities. They impact our daily lives, whether we know it or not. And so to have strong community-based organizations wherever we live, work, and play is so critical. So I spent about 2 decades working hands-on in communities addressing issues like housing and homelessness, criminal justice reform, youth violence prevention, childhood obesity, you name it, I probably worked on it to some degree. And I recognized after those couple of decades, I felt like we were spinning our wheels and not actually generating the results that we wanted to see. And leveraging that hands-on experience and what's worked and what didn't, and all of the roles and complexities that our NGOs face here in California, here in the US, I think we were able to then pivot and start to support these organizations to see what you can't see when you're so close to it, those blind spots that we may have of not just the pain points, those are easy to identify, but what's underneath those pain points. So I really I was hungry for understanding and learning the tools, the practices, the best that's out there for design frameworks. What can give us courage as leaders to actually do what we need to do to generate results? And then the other pivot there was to democratize that. So often the best of systems change theories or leadership frameworks are saved for academia or are saved for larger organizations that can pay for those things. And I thought, anyone who cares about creating positive change in their community should have access to the best tools to do that.
Megan, I'd love for you to elaborate on something there. You mentioned,
Sure.
being perhaps so close to a problem that you couldn't identify it, right? Having those blind spots, but ultimately being able to see that and bring solutions as well. Can you elaborate on, how it is that you identified these blind spots being so close to the problem?
Yeah. You know, all of our work is based on experiencing it ourselves, and that's what's unique. It's sort of the special sauce, is bringing our lived experience of working on the ground in NGOs to the table. And so that was my experience. I was working in several organizations over the last couple of decades where I knew something wasn't working. I knew it was a pain point that we weren't able to get the results that we kept spinning our wheels to achieve, but I couldn't understand because I was in it working with the humans that were part of those systems. I couldn't see what the root of that issue was until I could take a step back and be able to look at it from more of a 10,000 or a 50,000 foot view. And not just that, but have the right tools and the right practices to be able to analyze that problem. So we want to be able to meet the immediate need. That, as a leader of any organization, that's our first priority, right? Is we want to fix the problem, meet the immediate need. But we also need to look at the norms, the narratives, the culture, the systems, the policies that are keeping that need in status quo. And that's the part that I started to learn how to analyze differently and now support others to do.
Amazing. So 2 decades in the NGO and nonprofit space, and you were clearly solving some pretty significant problems, right? Not just with the impact that you
Right.
were having, but the actual problems you were solving for the organizations delivering this impact.
Mhm.
What led you to decide that it was time to leave that sphere and start a company for yourself?
Yeah. Um, the that what we were doing was working. We started to, within those positions, I started to support other leaders more and more and focus on the culture, the capacity building, the helping people see the problem from a different lens. And so recognized that even more powerful than continuing on a specific issue area or in a specific community, I could have more impact by building a team and bringing what we know works at scale to others. And so that is what we've been doing for the past 8 years.
Amazing. Yeah, because NGOs and nonprofits, they have a profound impact, but they're
Absolutely.
not run for profit. So if you're not run for profit, you don't have as many resources to, reinvest,
Mhm.
let's say, and grow in the direction maybe, you really want to for purpose and passion, impact and all of this as well. But
Right.
there's some pretty fundamental differences between running and directing an NGO and running a capitalism driven business, let's say, as well, right? Different mindsets that you have to take to them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think, and that's something that we learned through practice in terms of how do we scale impact launch and ensure it's sustainable and effective. I recognized I need to shift out of the mindset of an executive director of a nonprofit organization and shift into the mindset of a CEO. And some of those shifts include sort of shifting from this scarcity mindset. You mentioned resources. Typically, in a nonprofit, we're always concerned about where the next grant or donation, how are we going to develop the resources that we need now and into the future. I wanted to shift that to more of a CEO mindset of how do we steward our resources so that they grow themselves and that we are strategic and not just stretching limited resources, but really proactively shaping a sustainable future for our organization. And so, even with just that shift, we also started to see something really interesting, which is if our nonprofit executive directors made that mindset shift as well and operated more like the CEO of a social impact organization, they could be more sustainable and more powerful and more effective. So, one of the other shifts around that I saw was our NGOs really, it's pretty simple. They deliver programs to meet community needs. How do we, as in a CEO mindset, design pathways for measurable impact? So yes, we want to meet immediate needs, but we also need to look at that sustainable impact that we want. How do we build the leadership field and give our staff the best, like our philosophy, the best tools and practices we can so that they can do their work. So it's taking more of a systems approach and more of an organizational development approach. Then again, just being on that hamster wheel of meeting the daily fires that we have to put out.
It seems like there would almost be some conflicting beliefs, right, that you
Mm.
might have had to overcome through that as well, helping people within the organizations step into, I don't want to say a new identity altogether, but have a pretty
Hmm.
profound shift in how they look at the work that they do. What do
Yeah.
you find were some of the most challenging, perhaps inner conflicts that some people recognize in themselves or that you helped some of the people that you worked with identify and overcome and perhaps change and grow beyond?
Yeah. I think it depends on where the executive director is entering from. So I'll give a couple of examples. One huge success story where I worked with a medium-sized nonprofit that provides direct service and food access is their focus. The executive director was visionary, and sometimes when you have a visionary executive director come on board and the culture of the organization doesn't meet what their vision is or the speed at which they'd like to create change, or that change management process is key. So when we love to work with risk takers. We love to work with those visionary leaders who have the courage to shape the future direction of their organization, but they cannot do that in a vacuum. And that's one of the big key points that we try to support. How do we do effective change management with our teams? And don't forget your board. If you could do everything right, and then you get to the board and the buck stops with them, and all of a sudden your initiative is dead in the water. So we do a lot of work around board engagement, board capacity building, ensuring they know what their role is, what it's not, and helping to, what we say, sort of till the soil, cultivate the soil to be able to have that vision grow and not die on the vine, as they say.
I'm just curious here. It sounds like you make and help foster some pretty profound shifts in the way that leaders think within these organizations. Could you perhaps share a story of the impact that these shifts have had on some of the
Mhm.
companies you've worked with?
Yeah, yeah. So just staying with that same example, through the work that we did comprehensively to co-create with the staff a new framework for designing programs so that those programs were more centered on what the community needed rather than being top down. And then similarly work with the board to build understanding of why those shifts were needed, to build capacity to help implement and support those big shifts. And these aren't just strategy shifts, it's also cultural shifts. It's understanding what shared leadership can look like, where there's opportunities to co-design so that everyone on the team, top down and across, is aligned and enrolled and where you're going. So through that comprehensive approach with that one organization, they were able to do a strategic refresh in alignment with that direction. And now they are in implementation. They're completely operational in terms of where their staff is headed, and the board's in alignment with that. And they shifted from sort of burnout and change fatigue, which is very real, and wanting to just stay with the comfortable status quo because that's what we know. They energize the entire team to want to be a part of the change. And that's what we want to see, is that big shift.
I mean, that shift within an organization, energizing teams, helping them eliminate burnout from
Yeah.
change and everything as well is, it speaks volumes. What kind of an impact do you expect to see, or do you see with clients who are able to effectively make these changes when it comes to what it is they're delivering at the end of the day?
Yeah.
How much can what they deliver change for the better?
Yeah, it's monumental, honestly, because we're often stuck in this scarcity mindset where we're just trying to manage the next problem, manage the people that are trying to solve that problem, trying to figure out where our next funding source is going to come from. So we're just in this reactionary mode to what's next. And we want to draw people into what's possible, developing, going from managing people to developing leadership, going from being dependent on a few sources of funding to being really purpose aligned in terms of revenue strategy, going from reacting to the moment to shaping the future. So when we can make those mindset shifts, we move from sort of scatter and overwhelm to the organization's unique zone of genius or brilliance. And when everyone can understand themselves and what their unique contribution is and is working together in that way and understands the vision that they're working toward, everything's easier. You save time, you save money, you have more impact, you can generate the results that you actually want to see. And that's what this work is about. All of the other stuff is great, but we want to see results in the community. That's what it's about.
Oh, absolutely. So the major shift here to dumb down what you're saying, let's say,
Yeah.
maybe distill it, it's moving from that scarcity mindset, which actually, it will have you turn in internally and, get more stressed and feel more tense. And, your physical
Right.
response will, of course, impact everything else. But moving from that scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset, right? Looking
Mhm.
for and seeing opportunity in many different places.
Right.
Speaking on scarcity mindset specifically, a lot of coaches and consultants are in a funny place right now where perhaps they're falling into that mindset themselves, right?
Hmm.
When it comes to the state of the markets that we're in this world, there's
Hmm.
more opportunity than ever for coaches and consultants to grow their businesses. There's more businesses out there who need what they do, but it's increasingly challenging. And perhaps some of these individuals are falling into that scarcity mindset. I can't break through the noise. How am I going to get new clients? How am I going to
Hmm.
build trust? It's impossible to do. Megan, what are you observing when it comes to these forces that are impacting coaches and consultants with client acquisition in today's economy?
Yeah. Yeah, that's very real. I think since the COVID epidemic, more and more individuals have been entering the consultant and coaching space. There are statistics out there that show the increasing number of people that want to be their own boss. They don't want to be a part of a bureaucracy anymore. They want the freedom to create, and all of that is amazing. I think understanding our individual motivations for why we want to do this, it's not for the faint of heart. Not everyone will make it, honestly. But if we can really, number one, drill down into our why and our motivating factors for why we want to operate in this unique way, I think that can really help us zero in on what we can leverage our strengths. So if I really had to distill it, I think instead of looking at how do I get my next client, it's how do I how can I uniquely serve the pain points that the people in the field that I want to serve are experiencing right now? One of the greatest pieces of advice I got is don't solve a problem that folks don't know is a problem, because you're going to be spinning your wheels. So, how do we, as an entry point, really meet the current needs that folks really are feeling? They understand, they see it, and then use that as an opportunity once you're in there to be able to expand, to be able to show and raise awareness about other possibilities. But I think really leaning into our individual strengths, understanding our why, and then working on those pain points are key.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, right? Having to understand your why and really what you can do that will differentiate you
Yeah.
and the problem that you're really going to solve, but then also taking the approach of, as you said, making it simple, right? For people to
Hmm.
understand. It's great if you can do something, profound and incredible and revolutionary. But
Right.
if what you're saying is perhaps, ahead of your time and people can actually understand what you're try to communicate to them,
Yeah.
you're just going to get
Yeah.
lost in the noise, right? You won't be able to
Absolutely.
stand out. So Megan,
Hmm.
from your perspective, when you have that why solid,
Hmm.
right, and you know how to communicate that, right,
Hmm.
perhaps what are some of the strategies or methods that you're using most effectively today to get those doors open for those initial conversations to really show people what you can do?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of key points here. One is sort of one of our key principles is relational, which I know we're going to talk a little bit about AI soon. It's so relevant right now in this moment in time. How do we balance the advances in technology and things that are potentially going to separate us as human beings and switch that on its head and stay in relation, stay human centered, because there is no better way to gain a client than to have a conversation, an actual conversation, not our avatar, but to be able to really just connect with that person and to understand what they're going through, to be able to share authentically what you can do for them. There's no better way. So, as much coffee date and tea drinking and Zoom meetings as you can have to connect one on one with decision makers is going to be key. And I think from that relational standpoint, making sure that you are, once you have that relationship, that you are scaling as much as possible. Who else do they know? What else can you do with that organization? Who in their network could you make a referral to so that you're expanding in an organic way? I think the field is going to be doing a lot of level setting around the trend around click funnels and things that at webinars and things that are more impersonal. And we will see, personally, I believe we're going to see a sort of a rubber band snap back to the authentic relational conversations that drive our growth.
I couldn't agree more. Relationships drive everything, and you really need to be able to get in the door to build trust effectively, right? The click
Right.
funnels and the marketing campaigns and all of that, they can work, but it's just the noise now, right? Unless you're in
Hmm.
the top
Hmm.
0.5% of
That's right.
marketers and emailers and all these things, you have almost no hope these days. You need a creative way, right, to really get in
Yes.
front of people and demonstrate and show value, right?
Hmm.
So, Megan, if we do something fun here, rewind the clock a few years and let's say you're at the
Yeah.
beginning of Impact Launch again. Let's pretend like you have no network to work through. You're new in the market. You're that coach who is has purpose, has drive, wants
Hmm.
to solve challenges and solutions. What would you do in today's market to get those coffee dates, to get in the door, and to build those relationships?
Yeah. I think the challenge that I propose to everyone listening that needs this is to put 5 people down on a piece of paper and call each one. Old-fashioned phone call each one. Set up a conversation and use what I call the snowball approach to have a really intentional conversation with that individual, see what's possible, and then ask them to name 2 to 3 people that you should talk to so that you are, again, building organically, but expanding your reach within the network that you already have. And I would say, don't think you have to have a list of thousands of people already or a formal network. A network can be just the people we know. If you're calling your aunt, that's a place to start. So, really looking at the resources that we already have, which is often a lot more than we think when we start to map it out.
Fantastic. I love that. It's a great starting point. So Megan, you mentioned AI a minute ago. Share with us now, right? Where
Yeah.
does AI start to play a role for you in being able to maintain quality relationships, build trust, and deliver the services that you do?
Yeah. I think this is a unique experience for NGOs, for especially community-based organizations and nonprofits. It really depends on the organization we're engaged with in terms of the appetite for AI. For us, we are starting to really be a resource and want to be a resource for guiding our clients, our community-based organizations, into how to use AI in alignment with their mission and values. So some community-based organizations, especially the smaller ones, are pretending AI doesn't exist, honestly. And there's reasons for that. And then those that are embracing it as an inevitable disruptor that it is, are seeing some of the benefits of using it and are starting to be able to show and tell that story. And so that is also what we're trying to do. We are trying to support our community-based organizations to use AI while still being rooted in relationships and authenticity and ethics and integrity. How do we use AI that doesn't extract or dehumanize, but really enhances our human connection? I read an interesting article, fast forwards 2025 AI for Humanity report. 48% of nonprofits that they surveyed said cost is a barrier to AI implementation. And yet there are so many no cost, low cost ways to use AI to enhance services. So that's what we're really zeroing in on. How do we enhance the results that we can accomplish for the communities that we're serving while being mission aligned and values aligned and aligned with our ethics?
With AI and NGOs and nonprofits in particular, right? AI is an incredible tool for leverage, for being able to create and produce more than any one person can on their own. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I'm sure there's a lot of fear and hesitation within these organizations for their core belief and the core purpose they
Hmm.
exist, right? Is for having
Hmm.
impact and providing and creating, right? Now, when we look at that, I mean, I'm sure that there's a lot of companies that you work with and organizations who are scared to start using AI as well, right?
Hmm.
Because they exist to serve the people that they work with, right? And
Yeah,
provide to. And, as a core part of that, they're very human centric and human focused, right? A lot
that's
of
right.
people think, oh, I don't want to use AI. I don't want to replace my employees, right? I need them. They
Hmm.
need this job. Like I want them around.
Right.
So when you look at that and just the mindset that certain people might have, how do you help your clients make that mindset shift around moving from the replacement idea of AI
Hmm.
to the synergy and the enhancement factor that it truly can be?
Yeah. Such a key principle. Like, how do we move from an extractive mindset of AI to enhancing the human centered aspect that's so core to social services? So, the key question we ask there of ourselves and our clients is how can we use AI to strengthen our mission and our community relationships and the services we can provide without compromising our mission, without compromising our values, without compromising the trust of the clients that we work with or the human aspect that makes the work so effective. So one is really start with your mission, not the technology. So don't start by asking how can we use AI? Start by saying, what does our community need right now that AI could help enhance? So, mission first, and then really protecting that human connection. So, how do we stay centered on community voice, for example? If we're building an AI tool to enhance services or enhance access to services, get community input. what's missing, what are the gaps, what could this help fill, and what do they not want to lose in terms of human connection. So really getting the community to help shape their approach. And just one other among many that I could lift up is to not fear emerging tools, but help shape them. Because this is an emerging field. It is at every moment changing and growing, and we have a unique opportunity right now to be able to shape the future of these tools. So AI is going to shape the sector, whether we're engaged or not. We may as well step into that space and take advantage of the opportunity to lead.
Couldn't agree more. I love that perspective.
Yeah.
Megan, your insights into strategic adaptation, systems change, and maximizing purpose are inspiring. To
Thank
conclude,
you.
based on your philosophy of adopting a CEO mindset for a greater scale and impact, what's the single most important piece of advice that you'd leave with our audience who are striving to build resilient, successful businesses in today's demanding market?
I would say um, that we as leaders in our field and as leaders of our own businesses and future need to stop treating our challenges as isolated problems and really see the opportunity to invest in designing whole systems solutions. I've learned over and over and over again that organizations, our clients, don't struggle because of a single issue. They struggle because there's misalignment of mission or operations or values or practices, whatever that might be, whatever our special sauce is. Get really clear on that unique value proposition and find your unique way of addressing that holistic issue, because success attracts success. And once you can start getting that ball rolling and having successful cases of clients that you've helped in this holistic way, that will spread. That will lead to more growth very organically.
Wonderful. Megan, thank you so much for sharing your story and your insights with the audience today. For
Thank
anyone
you.
listening who might like to find you online to continue the conversation or to learn more
Yeah.
about what you're doing at Impact Launch, what would be the best way to find you?
You can find us at impactlaunch.org. A contact box will pop right up, and that goes directly to my inbox, and I would love to connect.
Thanks again for joining us on the Growth Shift today.
Thank you.
Another powerful conversation on the Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Valentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner, building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on the Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.